You know he isn't right for you. The signs have been there for a while. The same fights that never really get resolved. That sinking feeling when you're together but still feel alone. Friends tell you to leave. Deep down, you've told yourself the same thing. But when it's time to actually do it, everything suddenly gets complicated. Your chest tightens, doubt creeps in. You remember the good moments, the promises, the hope. You start wondering if maybe you're overreacting or if you'll ever find anything better. And suddenly something that felt obvious a week ago starts to feel impossible. Psychotherapist Jillian Turecki says this moment, standing at the edge of a breakup, is one of the bravest and most misunderstood parts of love. From the outside, it looks simple. He's wrong for you. Just leave. But inside, it's terrifying. Especially if you've never seen healthy love up close, if being alone scares you, or if a part of you still believes this might be the best you'll get. In this video, we're going to unpack why walking away from someone wrong for you can feel harder than staying. We'll explore the fears that grip you, the old patterns that keep you stuck, and the quiet psychological hooks that make letting go feel impossible. And it starts with the most powerful one of all, the fear of the unknown. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Breaking up isn't just about losing them, it's about losing the story you've been living in. Even if the relationship has been rocky, it's familiar. You know the rhythm. You know the morning texts, the Friday night routines, even the little arguments that happen on cue. There's a weird comfort in that predictability, even when it hurts. Psychotherapist Jillian Turecki says this is one of the biggest reasons people stay too long. The unknown is scarier than the uncomfortable. Your brain actually prefers the devil it knows. Psychologists call this loss aversion. We're wired to fear losses more than we desire new gains. Studies show that people feel the pain of loss about twice as strongly as they feel the joy of a similar gain. So when you imagine stepping out of the relationship, your mind focuses on everything you're about to lose, not what you might find. And let's be honest, the unknown can get noisy. Thoughts like, what if no one else wants me? Or, what if I'm single forever? Or the classic, maybe it's not that bad, start looping like a broken record. Nights feel longer. Weekends feel emptier. Even the silence has a weight to it. For people who've never seen healthy love modeled or who struggle with self-worth, this fear hits even harder. The relationship, even if it's wrong, gives them a sense of identity. Leaving means rewriting who they are without that person, and that's a big deal. Jillian says this is the exact moment where courage matters most, when nothing is certain, and your only safety net is your belief that there's a better future waiting. That leap into the unknown is terrifying, yes, but it's also where your life starts to open up again. Right when you start to picture life without him, it's like an invisible thread pulls you back. It's not logic, and it's not even love. It's the attachment hook. Humans are wired to bond. It's literally in our biology. When you spend months or years with someone, your brain starts linking them to safety, comfort, and even survival. Psychologists say romantic attachment lights up the same areas of the brain as addiction. So when you try to break up, your mind and body don't react like you're making a healthy decision. They react like you're going through withdrawal. Jillian often talks about how this shows up. One day you feel strong and ready to move on. The next, you're scrolling through old texts at 1 a.m., convincing yourself he wasn't that bad. A pattern more common than most people admit. That's your nervous system trying to reattach to what it knows. Studies using brain scans have shown that people going through a breakup experience activity in the same regions activated during physical pain. That's why heartbreak doesn't just hurt emotionally, it can literally feel like something is breaking inside you. And the more intense the relationship, the stronger that chemical hook becomes. This is why so many people get caught in that on-again, off-again loop. The moment you try to leave, the attachment system panics. Your brain throws up memories, cravings, flashes of the good times, anything to pull you back into familiar territory. It's not a sign that he's right for you. It's just your wiring doing exactly what it was designed to do. Breaking this hook isn't easy, but once you understand what's happening, it becomes less about, why can't I move on? And more about, my brain's doing its thing, and I don't have to follow it. Once the attachment hook has its grip, something even more powerful can keep you stuck. The story you tell yourself about your own worth. Jillian Turecki explains that for many people, breakups don't just trigger sadness, they crack open old insecurities. Suddenly, it's not just, should I leave him? It's, am I lovable without him? All those quiet doubts you've carried for years step into the spotlight. Maybe you start replaying every moment you weren't chosen in the past. Maybe you convince yourself that this is as good as it gets, that your needs are too much, or that someone better wouldn't actually want you. These aren't random breakup thoughts. They're old scripts, often written long before this relationship began. Research has shown that people with lower self-esteem are significantly more likely to stay in unhealthy relationships, not because they don't notice the problems, but because they quietly believe they don't deserve better. And here's the cruel twist: toxic relationships often feed that belief. Over time, constant criticism, neglect, or subtle put-downs chip away at your sense of self. You start adjusting your expectations downward without even realizing it. What once felt unacceptable becomes the new normal. Jillian says that leaving a relationship like this isn't just about walking away from a person. It's about confronting the parts of yourself that settled for less. And that's why it can feel so heavy. Because deep down, this isn't only a breakup, it's a reckoning with your own value. The moment you decide to leave, you're not just ending a chapter with him. You're daring to believe that your story deserves a better plot. Even after you start questioning your worth, sometimes there's another reason it's so hard to let go. You're not just attached to the person, you're attached to the idea of what the two of you were supposed to become. Jillian Turecki often sees this in her clients. They picture a future together in such detail that it starts to feel real. You imagine the apartment you'd share, the holidays you'd spend together, the way he'd eventually grow into the partner you hoped for. These images become so vivid that when the relationship starts to break down, it feels like more than a breakup. It feels like an entire future is slipping away. This is when your memory starts to play tricks on you. You start replaying the best moments, the early days when everything felt exciting and full of promise. You hold on to those flashes of warmth and possibility while quietly editing out all the times you felt ignored, disappointed, or small. Sometimes this fantasy comes from the other person's promises. Psychologists call this future faking, when someone paints a beautiful picture they never actually build. But often we contribute to it ourselves. We project potential onto someone because it's easier to hold on to the dream than to face what's actually in front of us. When the fantasy has been built up over months or years, letting it go can feel like tearing down a house you helped design. And that's why the grief feels so deep. You're not only mourning the relationship you had, but also the future you thought was waiting for you. Think about what happens right after a breakup. You tell yourself you're done. You delete the pictures. You swear you won't check his profile. And then a few nights later, you catch yourself scrolling at 1 a.m., reading old messages like they're love letters from another lifetime. Your stomach drops, your heart races. And suddenly, all that resolve feels shaky. That's chemistry. Jillian Turecki often reminds people that love isn't just emotional, it's wired deep into the brain. When you fall for someone, your brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin, the same feel-good chemicals that light up reward circuits. Over time, your body links that person to comfort and stability. So when the relationship ends, your brain doesn't just move on, it goes through withdrawal. That's why people keep reaching back for little hits of connection. Checking social media, leaving the text thread pinned, wearing their hoodie because it still smells like them. Some even replay favorite moments over and over like a highlight reel. Not because they're delusional, but because their brain is literally craving the chemicals those memories used to produce. Neuroscientists have found that the same brain regions activated by drug cravings light up during heartbreak. It's not poetic exaggeration, it's biology. And every time you give into those impulses, you're feeding the loop. That's why Jillian says part of healing is retraining your brain to live without its old source of dopamine. And while all of that is happening inside your head and body, there's another weight pressing in from the outside: other people. Breakups don't happen in a vacuum. The world around you is watching, reacting, offering opinions, sometimes helpfully, sometimes not. Jillian Turecki points out that the way friends, family, and even social media respond can quietly shape how long we stay in a relationship that isn't working. Maybe your parents adore him and keep reminding you how lucky you are. Maybe your friend group has gotten so used to the two of you together that breaking up feels like tearing a social fabric. Or maybe you've spent years posting the picture-perfect version of your relationship online, and now you feel a quiet panic about what everyone will think if it ends. There's also the loneliness factor. When you're single again, suddenly the group chats shift, the weekend plans change, and it can feel like you're starting from scratch socially. Studies have shown that social belonging plays a huge role in emotional regulation, which means losing a partner can temporarily shake your entire sense of community. These outside pressures don't always scream, they whisper. A well-meaning "are you sure?" from a friend, a nostalgic comment from his sibling, a family member asking about wedding plans. None of it seems huge on its own, but together it can quietly convince you to hang on a little longer. This is why Jillian says clarity has to come from within. If the decision is built on pleasing everyone else, the breakup turns into a performance. And when that happens, your healing doesn't really start, it just gets delayed. There's a moment that comes after the decision, after the talks, after the unfollowing, after the adrenaline wears off, when everything goes quiet. That's when it hits you. Jillian Turecki says that breakups often carry a kind of grief that people underestimate. We usually expect sadness, we expect to miss the person, but the actual grief is layered and sneaky. It doesn't always show up as dramatic crying on the floor. Sometimes it's the silence on a Sunday morning when you reach for your phone and realize there's no message waiting. It's cooking dinner and setting out one plate instead of two. It's hearing a song in a cafe that pulls you back to a night when you thought everything was perfect. Psychologists describe this as ambiguous loss, grieving someone who's still alive but no longer part of your life in the same way. And it's complicated because the person you're missing might also be the one who hurt you. That emotional conflict can leave you stuck between longing and relief, sadness and clarity, love and resentment, sometimes all in the same hour. This is the part many people try to rush through. They throw themselves into distractions, start dating too soon, or convince themselves they're over it before they've actually felt it. But unprocessed grief doesn't disappear. It lingers underneath everything, pulling you back toward what you left behind. Jillian tells us that this stage is part of the process. The quiet ache, the random tears in the car, the way a memory suddenly catches you off guard. That's your heart adjusting to a new reality. It doesn't mean you're weak, and it doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It just means you cared deeply. And now, little by little, you're learning how to move forward without pretending it didn't matter. Somewhere after the fear, the attachment, the self-doubt, the fantasy, the chemistry, the pressure, and the grief, something shifts. It's usually not a dramatic moment. It's quiet. You wake up one day and realize that the weight on your chest has eased a little. The memories still sting, but they don't control you. The silence that once felt heavy starts to feel peaceful. Jillian talks about this stage as the point where people finally turn their attention inward. Instead of obsessing over what he's doing or whether he's moved on, you begin to focus on your own life again. Maybe you pick up an old hobby or you make plans that don't involve checking your phone every 5 minutes. Maybe you finally feel like you can breathe. This isn't about becoming instantly healed. It's about deciding again and again that your well-being matters more than a relationship that held you back. It's about rebuilding trust with yourself slowly through everyday choices. And when that happens, something powerful begins to take root. You stop needing the relationship to define you. You stop looking backward for answers. You start walking toward your future with both feet on the ground. Leaving someone who isn't right for you is never as simple as people make it sound. It forces you to face parts of yourself you might have ignored, to sit with uncertainty, and to walk away from something that once felt like home. That takes real courage. If you're somewhere in the middle of that process, take a moment to acknowledge it. Most people underestimate how much strength it takes to choose yourself, especially when nobody's cheering you on and half of your heart still wants to stay. Jillian Turecki's work is a reminder that healing doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens slowly, in the way you speak to yourself when no one's watching. Some days will feel steady, others won't. But both are part of finding your footing again. If this video gave you a bit of clarity or made you feel less alone, leave a comment and let us know where you are in your journey. And if you'd like to hear more conversations like this, tap like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.